The bell above the door rang once, thin, apologetic, and the sound lingered longer than it should have, as if the store itself needed a moment to remember how to stop vibrating. I was alone behind the counter, halfway through counting the same stack of bills for the third time. It was past midnight, the hour when the fluorescent lights stopped pretending to be steady and the refrigerators began to breathe. The late-night convenience store had a way of compressing time, stretching minutes until they thinned and tore. Outside, distant traffic hissed along the road like a tide that never quite reached shore. Inside, everything reflected everything else. The woman stepped in quietly. No rush, no hesitation. She wore a dark coat, damp at the hem, as though she'd walked through fog or mist. Her hair was pulled back, severe and tidy, and her face, plain, forgettable, caught the store's glow and gave it nothing back. She nodded once at me, not a greeting so much as an acknowledgement that I existed in the same space. I nodded back. She didn't pick up a basket. She didn't drift toward the aisles. Instead, she stood near the front windows, the glass crowded with reflections. Shelves doubled into infinity, the blinking lottery sign repeated again and again, my own pale face hovering behind the counter like a ghost that worked nights. The freezers hummed along the far wall. Their doors were glass, fogged at the edges, cold light pooling inside them. I watched the woman through those reflections more than directly. It was easier that way, less intrusive. Her reflection appeared in 3 places at once: window, freezer door, security mirror in the corner, and in each one she seemed slightly different. In one, her shoulders were slumped. In another, she stood straighter, chin lifted. In the convex mirror, her face bent outward, eyes too wide, watching the counter even when her body didn't turn. The lights flickered, a quick stutter like a skipped heartbeat. The store smelled faintly of hot dust and cold metal. She walked down the main aisle without touching anything. Her footsteps were soft, absorbed by the thin carpet runner near the coolers. I heard the door of the back refrigerator cycle on, a deeper growl beneath the constant hum. The temperature shifted as she passed, a thread of cold trailing her, making my arms prickle. She stopped in front of the freezer doors. For a long moment, she only looked, not at the ice cream or frozen meals, but at herself. Or rather, at the versions of herself stacked in the glass. I became aware of my own reflection then, how it floated above the counter, slightly delayed. When I shifted my weight, the man in the glass followed a fraction of a second later. I told myself it was the lighting, old bulbs, old wiring. Everything here was old. The woman raised her hand. In the freezer door, her reflection raised it too, but not quite the same way. The real hand moved slowly, fingers spreading. The reflected hand snapped open, fingers splayed too wide, joints bending at impossible angles, as if the glass were pulling at them. She lowered her arm. The reflection didn't. It remained there, palm pressed flat against the cold surface from the other side, leaving no fog, no print. The woman frowned, not alarmed, just curious. She leaned closer to the glass, breath frosting it faintly. The reflection leaned closer too, but its face pressed forward until it seemed almost outside the plane of the door, nose flattened, eyes bulging with interest. When she stepped back, the reflection lagged, then drifted into place as if settling. Cleared my throat. "Can I help you find something?" She turned. Her eyes met mine directly for the first time. They were dark and steady and held no confusion, no fear. She shook her head once. "No," she said. Her voice was dry like paper rubbed together. "I just needed to check." "Check what?" She smiled, thin and brief, already turning away. "That it was still open." She walked back toward the front. The lights flickered again, longer this time, a soft dimming that made the shadows deepen between aisles. The security mirror clicked faintly as it adjusted, its little motor whining. In it, I saw the woman pause just for a second, while her reflection kept moving, gliding past her toward the door. She didn't seem to notice. At the counter, she stopped. For a moment, I thought she might buy something after all, but she only rested her hand on the surface, fingers drumming once, twice. The counter glass reflected her face up at her. From my angle, the reflection smiled. The woman did not. "Have a good night," I said automatically. She nodded, already stepping back. The bell rang as she left, sharper this time, like it wanted to be heard. The door closed. The lock clicked. The store settled. I waited for the reflections to realign. They always did. After customers left, the glass calmed, surfaces returning to their obedient mimicry. I turned back to my register, to the numbers that refused to stay counted. A movement at the front window caught my eye. Her reflection stood there, not outside, inside the glass. Where the woman's shape had been moments before, a silhouette lingered, faint but definite. The street beyond was empty. Headlights passed in the distance, briefly illuminating the reflection's edges. But there was no woman on the sidewalk, no shadow crossing the concrete. The reflection faced inward, looking at the store. At me. I blinked. The reflection did not flicker or fade. It lifted its hand. I raised mine. The reflection's hand rose higher. I lowered my arm. It did not. The hum of the refrigerators deepened, dropping into a lower register that made my teeth ache. The cold air spilled from the freezers, curling along the floor like breath. The lights overhead buzzed, one tube flickering erratically near the back aisle. "Hey," I said, and my voice sounded too loud. Wrong. Stores closed. The reflection smiled. It stepped away from the window. I followed its movement through the glass surfaces. First the freezer doors, then the mirrored end cap near the drinks, then the security mirror in the corner. It didn't walk so much as slide, its feet never quite touching the floor, its motion smooth and continuous even when it passed from one reflective plane to another. In the security mirror, it stopped. The mirror showed more of the store than my eyes could see at once. A wide-angle view of aisles and coolers and the empty space between. The reflection stood in the center of that space, head tilted, studying the layout. It raised a finger and pointed directly at the counter. At me. I backed away, bumping into the cigarette rack. The glass rattled softly. The reflection's eyes followed me, tracking with an accuracy that made my skin crawl. I reached for the phone beneath the counter. In its dark screen, another reflection waited. This one was closer, face nearly pressed against the glass from the inside. Its mouth opened, forming words without sound. Behind me, the freezers clicked off. Silence flooded the store, thick and heavy. Even the traffic outside seemed to recede, muffled, distant. In the sudden quiet, I heard footsteps. They did not echo. They did not disturb the air. They existed only in reflection. Moving toward me in the security mirror, step by step, the woman's shape elongating as she approached, joints bending where they shouldn't, her smile widening with each impossible stride. The phone slipped from my hand. The reflection stopped just short of the counter. It leaned forward, placing both palms on the glass surface between us. The counter glass fogged, not on my side, but on hers. Words appeared in the mist, written backward at first, then slowly correcting themselves. "Your turn." I shook my head. "That's not how this works." The reflection's eyes softened, almost kind. It tilted its head in a gesture I recognized, my own, when I was trying to reassure someone. Behind it, in the freezer doors, I saw myself, standing where the reflection had been moments ago, perfectly still, watching. The reflection glanced back at that image, then returned its gaze to me. It smiled wider, and for the first time, its mouth moved in time with its voice. "It already is," it said. The lights went out. When they came back on, the store was empty. Just shelves and glass and humming machines. A man stood behind the counter, pale and shaken, staring at his own reflection in the front window. Outside, a woman walked away into the night, her coat hem damp with fog, her reflection following her perfectly. This time. The soda bottles began vibrating in sync with my heartbeat. At first, I thought it was the refrigeration unit cycling, one of those low, mechanical shutters that travel through the floor when the compressors kick on. The kind you feel more than hear. I was standing at the end of the beverage aisle, halfway through straightening labels that no one ever read, when the glass under my fingers gave a faint tremor. Then another. Then all of them. The convenience store was nearly empty of sound, the way it always was after midnight. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, not quite flickering, but never fully steady either. Their white glare flattened everything into the same tired color. The aisles, the scuffed linoleum, my own reflection stretched thin in the freezer doors along the back wall. Outside, traffic moved far away, a distant, oceanic hiss that came and went in waves. I pressed my palm against a bottle of cola. The glass was cold enough to sting. Beneath that cold, I felt it thump, a subtle vibration, like a pulse traveling through the bottle into my hand. I held my breath. The vibration stopped. I exhaled. Thump. My heartbeat wasn't racing. Not yet. It was slow, steady, the rhythm I'd lived inside my whole life. And somehow, impossibly, the bottles were matching it. Every row, every brand, plastic and glass alike, trembling in unison. So faint it would have been easy to miss if I hadn't been touching them. The refrigerators hummed, their sound deepening, stretching into something almost tonal. The air felt colder than it had a moment ago, as if the store were leaning closer to its own machinery. Listening. I stepped back from the shelf. The bottles continued to vibrate. I laughed once, too loud in the quiet aisle, and rubbed my hands together. Old building, I muttered, though there was no one to hear me. Bad wiring. The sound of my voice seemed to stick to the shelves, lingering a beat longer than it should have. I started toward the counter, shoes squeaking faintly on the floor. With every step, my awareness of my own body sharpened, the weight of my chest rising and falling, the soft pressure behind my sternum. Thump, thump. Each beat felt heavier now, more deliberate, like something knocking from the inside. When I passed the freezers, my reflection slid along beside me in the glass. The lights above flickered, and for a fraction of a second the reflection lagged, my body stopping while the image took one more step before correcting itself. I stopped. The reflection did not. Took a half step more, then froze, facing me. The glass was fogged at the edges with cold, but its face, my face, was clear. Too clear. The eyes looked darker, more intent, fixed on me with a focus I didn't feel mirrored in myself. Behind me, from the soda aisle, came a soft sound. Tick, tick, tick. Not glass clinking. Not quite. More like fingers tapping lightly on bottles. I turned slowly. The aisle was empty, but the bottles were moving now in a way that didn't try to hide itself. Each one shivered minutely, caps rattling against plastic collars, labels whispering as they rubbed. The sound was synchronized, rising and falling together. With my pulse, I placed 2 fingers against my neck. The skin there was damp, chilled by the air. Thump. The bottles answered. A cold pressure spread across my shoulders, the unmistakable sensation of being observed. Not from one direction, but from many, every reflective surface in the store suddenly too aware. The convex security mirror above the aisle reflected the entire space in a warped curve. In it, I saw myself standing rigid, hands half raised, surrounded by shelves that bent inward like ribs. The refrigerators grew louder. Their hum slipped into a vibration I felt in my teeth. I know this is stress, I said carefully, as if the store might object if I spoke too quickly. Lack of sleep, that's all. My reflection in the security mirror tilted its head. I hadn't. The bottles rattled harder, a little faster. My heart responded before my mind could stop it. Thump thump. The vibration intensified. A few bottles knocked gently together, a soft chime of glass on glass. I could feel it through the soles of my shoes now, the pulse traveling through the floor, up my legs, sinking me to the shelves. I tried to slow my breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth, the way I'd been taught. The heartbeat resisted, stubborn and loud, as if something else had taken an interest in its tempo. The lights flickered again, longer this time. When they steadied, the reflections were wrong. The freezer doors showed the aisle behind me, but also something more. A second version of me stood there, offset by inches, its chest rising just out of time with mine. His heartbeat was slower, deliberate. The soda bottles nearest that reflection vibrated to its rhythm instead. The rest followed. I backed away, bumping into the counter. The register beeped softly, waking from sleep. Its dark screen reflected my face, pale and distorted. In that reflection, my mouth was closed. In the glass, it smiled. The tapping sound from the bottles grew more insistent, no longer a byproduct of vibration but something intentional. Each thump of the beat now felt like a signal sent outward rather than a response. The store seemed to inhale with me, cold air flowing from the refrigerators, fogging the lower shelves. I pressed my hand flat against the counter, grounding myself in the solid, familiar surface. The vibration was there too, faint but undeniable, traveling through the laminate. "You're just a place," I whispered. "You're just machines and glass." The reflection in the register leaned closer. "So are you," it said, though my lips didn't move. The bottles shook violently now, a low chorus of rattles and clicks, caps ticking like teeth. The sound aligned perfectly with the beat echoing in my ears, louder than it had ever been, filling my head until there was no room for thought. The security mirror darkened, its surface clouding. Shapes moved within it. Not shapes exactly, but pressures like fingerprints pressing from the other side. With each heartbeat, those impressions grew clearer. I felt a tug in my chest. Not pain, a suggestion. The bottles closest to me slid a fraction of an inch forward on the shelf, glass scraping softly. Their labels faced inward, turned toward me like an audience. The reflection in the freezer door stepped forward. This time, when it moved, I felt it, an answering shift inside my ribcage, as though something were rearranging itself to make space. My heartbeat stuttered. The bottles paused. Then they resumed, slower now, matching the new rhythm. Not mine. The lights flickered one last time and went steady, bright and unforgiving. The store was quiet again, save for the hum of refrigerators and the distant rush of traffic beyond the glass. I stood alone in the aisle, breathing shallowly, my pulse a dull, obedient throb. The soda bottles were perfectly still. In the freezer doors, my reflection watched me, chest rising and falling with a confidence I didn't feel. It raised a hand. Inside my chest, something answered. Thump. The glass began to vibrate.